All right, let's rock and roll. It is Friday, the end of the week, and you know what that means? Nothing. Another deeper dive because we do it 5 days a week. Dave Lochran and Adam Shaw, 7 game slate. Uh, normally on a Friday we'd be starting a little bit earlier than this, but not the case, Adam. We don't really need to. 7 games on a Friday. I kind of like it though. 7 games, pretty much in my wheelhouse. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I really like this slate in general. I love seven gamers, and I think this one's pretty interesting. Like, there's a few games that are really ugly, but then there's a few spots that I think you and I both absolutely love. So it'll be fun to talk about those.
Seth Hader, nice to have him here. I already liked the video because my favorite part of listening to Adam and Lafia is always silence. Nice. Thanks, bud. Ah, what a guy. What a guy. Hit us with a like, of course, thumbs up, subscribe, notification, all of that good stuff. We love you guys. Love us back. All right, man, let's dive right into it. 7 games, some of which are really not that great. Others are basically where you're going to have the majority of your player pool. I think we both mentioned that of 150 lineups tonight. I don't do it every night. I know you do most nights, not every night, but I'm playing 150 tonight, and because there are certain guys that I'm just going to load up on and have a big a meaty core, and if it goes south, well then it's a wrap. But it feels like one of those slates where there's like 4 or 5 teams, as you pointed out earlier to me today, that guys are getting 40 minutes a game. And then there's just a bunch of other teams on the slate where it's like, I'll sprinkle them in. And if I get some, I do. But I got to make sure to have guys from this team, and this team, and maybe this team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you'll see, I mean, obviously people aren't dumb. They're going to find the good plays as well. But normally you'll still see people just kind of deviate enough where I think there is still an edge on slates like this, where people are going to just end up playing more of players in uncertain spots than they really should when you have so many guys that are just locked into huge minutes and good matchups.
You know what? Sometimes even not the best matchup is mitigated when you're playing 40 minutes with a lot of usage and your price tag has come down. Matchup is not everything. It's a factor, but sometimes it's not nearly as important. All right, Adam, let's just dive in. Philly and Charlotte. No, actually, let's start with Washington and Orlando. This game in Orlando, Washington, 3-point favorites here, still getting some love. Not that they deserve it. 220.5 total. There are actually, by the way, 3 games with pretty low totals given the year. And then there's 4 of them over 220. This is the lowest of those 4 at 220.5. Kind of an interesting game, though. A few guys here that I like quite a bit. What team do you want to start with?
Start with Washington.
Let's start with Washington. You know what? Let's start in the front court. Let's start with old Dwight Howard, who we know Scott Brooks is looking to run into the ground as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Howard's price tag just stays really low. He hasn't been that productive for Washington so far, but we're only talking about 3 games when you have, years and years of Dwight Howard being, like a 1.15, 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. And he's cheap enough now that even if he were to get like 1 fantasy point per minute, it's perfectly fine because he's just really, really cheap. In the first game back, they had said he wasn't on a minutes limit. He played 23 minutes in a blowout. Then he played about 30 minutes in a game where he lost 4 minutes to foul trouble and he lost a minute and a half to a game that was just out of hand with a minute and a half to go. And then last game he played about 32 minutes while once again sitting the last minute and a half of the game. So I think comfortably projecting Howard for 32 minutes with a possibility that he gets to 34 or 36 just makes him a really good play on this slate. It's not a terrible matchup against Orlando, but really just the price across the industry, 6,900 on FanDuel and 6,000 on DraftKings. I think it's still just too cheap for 34 minutes with Dwight Howard.
Yeah, I'm there too. It doesn't always feel great, but I just look at this game and here's what it comes down to. Is Brooks going to want Howard out there against Vooch? Yes. Is foul trouble potential concern? Yeah, but you can't live your life trying to predict foul trouble. Am I right?
Unless it's Jaren Jackson.
Unless it's actually no. Jaren Jackson he had 2 fouls in the first quarter, and I'm like, this fucking guy doesn't know that you're not allowed, like that you can't foul more than 6 times, and I don't think he knows. And then he didn't foul for the rest of the game, and surprise, surprise, ended up dropping 40 fantasy points because the guy's actually good when he's not getting in foul trouble.
Yeah, I had a ton of him that night, and he got to like 14 points in the first quarter, and I was like, oh, cool, like he's doing well. And then I pulled up the box score and saw he had 2 fouls, and I was like, you got to be shitting me.
Yes, sir. The baller, Laffy sipping on some lean. Yeah, definitely not sipping on lean. Nah, no, I'm not. Uh, None of that over here. Maybe if I move down south, I'll get more interested. But those days are long gone for old Laffy. Anyway, Adam, with Howard, there are other centers on this slate that I like quite a lot.
Yep.
But I still have interest in Howard because there's just still no question that he his usage is very low to start the season. But if Howard finishes this game with like 15, 13, and 4 blocks or something, it wouldn't be a big surprise to anybody. That's getting you exactly what you need at that price tag. And we've seen him do it so many times in the past. If in a close game, which just is expected to be, this guy gets upwards of 34 minutes, you don't have to love him, but you have to at least consider him.
Yeah, and one other thing to point out with Howard and how he hasn't really been that great on a permanent basis so far is he has a 14.7% rebounding percentage. That's really low for him, and this is not a good rebounding Washington team overall. So it's not like you have, other really good rebounders out there just taking his rebounds. It's a spot where I absolutely expect that number to jump sooner rather than later, and that'll immediately make him a more productive player.
Yes, sir. And you have to also consider the fact that he is in a game against a center who is offensively minded.
Yep.
Vooch isn't exactly someone that concerns me much. And Howard is still averaging 17 rebound chances per game. So these are numbers that I expect to see improve going forward. He has a 47% rebounding chance rate, which means 47% of his potential rebounds he's grabbing this year, Adam. If we know anything about Howard, that number is going to come up. So
Right, and it would make sense for him to kind of start out slowly. I mean, we're talking about a guy whose ass hurts too much; he can't even sit on the bench, at least in his first game back. So that probably doesn't lead to the most efficient rebounding numbers.
yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable point there. Let's move on to the rest of this game. Which, by the way, last year Dwight Howard in rebound chances ranked 6th in the league with 20.9 per game, and he has 60. He brought in 60% of those. So you're seeing him way below his averages. Talk to me about the backcourt here. We can talk Otto Porter, Markieff Morris, wherever you like. Start wherever you like.
Yeah, so I mean, I like all the Washington starters just because they're basically in desperation mode, and this team is awful. Like they're underperforming expectations by so much, and you see them playing, monster minutes. I have John Wall projected for 40 minutes again tonight. I have Beal at 38. I think that you see a couple less minutes for Porter than he played last game because Markieff Morris was in foul trouble, which just I think led to a few more minutes. But still, I think you get around 32 minutes out of Porter. You get 32 or 34 out of Keefe if he stays out of foul trouble. It makes these guys really appealing from that aspect. The part that I guess concerns me is that even when I project them for that, I still don't get a lot of them in my lineups outside of Howard. So I'm not saying that they're guys that I'm going to end up with a ton of exposure to because there are the really good plays on the slate. But I do think that the ceiling's certainly there when you talk about these guys all playing, mid to upper 30s in minutes.
Yeah, it's just hard for me to get to some of these guys. Like Otto Porter, I actually have more interest in than like a Brad Beal. It's not that I don't think Beal can put up a good game or John Wall, but I there's just the way that my rosters are shaping up. These guys aren't priorities for me. I think John Wall's a perfectly fine play. I'm certainly going to have some of him, but not a ton. I just really like some guards at better prices. How much Wall do you have right now on initial crunches?
Yeah, on my initial crunch, I think I had 8%. Now I had 60% caps on everyone, so obviously I'll get some more like trickled down to him,
Right.
but it wasn't a huge number.
Yeah, it's not. If Wall was like 8,400, I think we would be getting a lot more just by default.
Right.
But he isn't.
I
And
really like the $7,800 tag. I really like the prices on Beal, Morris, and Porter a lot, and Howard obviously. Wall's the
yeah,
one that I think is most correctly priced.
agreed. Yeah, it's not egregious pricing. It's just kind of a little too accurate, you know?
Right.
And I like Porter's price point a lot. He is going to have bad games. Porter's one of these guys that is not, routinely giving you 30 plus fantasy point games. And that happens when you play alongside Beal and Wall and even Markieff Morris, who can get things going. And now you have Dwight Howard on the court as well. But I think both of these guys are viable. I trust Otto Porter a little bit more than Morris, but both of them are in the kind of the same basket of you don't really know what you're going to get, but both of them are cheap enough to play. On the other side, Aaron Gordon, he continues to log really heavy minutes in close games. Granted, he was in foul trouble last time, Adam, and still finished with 44 fantasy points. He's really turned things around after that start to the season that was, pretty rough outside of one start. He got 39 plus DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5. We're seeing some consistency here. And when Aaron Gordon gets it going, he's really one of the guys that, when his price comes down like it has, he's very reasonably priced. He has to be in the discussion as well.
Yeah, I really like Gordon. It's another spot that I think he should do really well in. You have Washington, who plays at a fast pace. They don't play defense. They don't rebound well. They're one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, as we already mentioned. All that stuff plays to Aaron Gordon's favor. He's still very reasonably priced. And like you said, the 28 minutes last game, he lost about 10 minutes to foul trouble between a couple of different occasions. So I think that, getting 36 to 38 minutes out of Aaron Gordon really is not unreasonable as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, and he's too cheap for the type of production that I would expect him to, be able to produce against Washington.
Yes, sir. That's where I'm at as well. If he was down below 7K, I'd probably have a lot of him.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to have some of him.
My
I think
crunch still had 30% on DraftKings.
did it? Okay. I had like 21, I think, initially. So that can still change. I'm going to make some adjustments as well once we finish up the show. But my guess is that I come around like 20%, which I think is I think I'm all right with that. Gordon can have some very big games. Is it too often that he kills you when you fade him? No. It's not a bad matchup though. Close game. Should see a good amount of scoring. Both defenses have been pretty bad, so you could make a lot of arguments for him. Now, the arguments I have against Vooch, Adam, really aren't anything bad about Vooch himself. It's more so just the position and pricing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. My initial crunch, I still got 11% of him, which I actually was a little bit higher than I expected, given all the good center options on this slate. So I do really like the spot, but it's going to be tough to, jam in tons of him just because of the opportunity cost at the position, especially if you're talking FanDuel, where you can only roster one center today.
Right. Yeah, right now I only have about 5% Vooch. I may up it a little bit. I'm getting way too much Al Horford, and I'm just not big on playing Al Horford. Al Horford's so rarely going to kill you, and that's something that I tend to appreciate. Anything else from this game in the backcourt? Anyone we haven't talked about? I saw someone ask about DJ Augustin, who's $4,500 on DraftKings, and over on FanDuel you're getting him at 4,800.
Yeah, I mean, nothing I'm prioritizing. I don't have an issue in, tournaments with having some Augustine, having some Evan Fournier, some Terrence Ross. Like, it's obviously a good matchup for all of these guys, but I have them projected to, basically not exceed expectations, just to be perfectly mediocre plays. Whereas I have Gordon and Vucevic as underpriced.
All right, let's move it on then. So many games to talk about. Some of them good, some of them not. Philly and Charlotte. I'm actually, as a Philadelphia area native, I still live in the area. Looking forward to watching this game because you would mention something really, really interesting that what's his name? Borrego? Yeah, James Borrego. Talking about going to use a 3 center rotation to try and defend Embiid. Should be interesting. And that just basically means we don't know what's going to happen. I mentioned with Dan Stratford on today's Early Bird podcast, or last night, however you want to phrase it, Adam, that if I saw this and I knew that Ben Simmons would get aggressive and take over and really drive to the rack and exploit the undersized defenders that are surely going to be on him, I would have so much interest in him. And the reason I say that is because if they're going to focus all of their defensive attention on Embiid and let Ben Simmons beat them, Ben Simmons should be able to put up really big numbers, but we haven't seen him get aggressive in games where Embiid has struggled. And there have been a few where Embiid still puts up good fantasy production, but from an efficiency standpoint, needs some help. And Ben Simmons is still really not looking to do that. He took 20 shots against Charlotte earlier this year, made only 5 of them. I had quite a bit of him that night. He did. That was his season high in shots. But you haven't seen that aggressiveness outside of one game, which of course happened to be against Charlotte.
Yeah, and I agree with you that if they are going to scheme basically to take Embiid away or to do their best to do so, then it does translate into a good spot for Simmons. The problem is just that he's expensive. He's 9,800
Mhm.
on DraftKings. I think he's easier to get to on FanDuel. Josh and I were talking this morning about his price over there being, relatively better than it is on DraftKings. But on DraftKings, it's not even just that you're looking at him as a small forward. You still have to compare him to guys across other positions because of how flexible the rosters are, and it makes it tough to really get a lot of him. So I do like him. I think that there's a chance that we see increased usage from him again in this game, but I'm just not sure that I'm going to end up with a whole lot of him in lineups just because of all the other options.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Magic starting lineup released. It's exactly what we expected it to be. Um, the only guy I'm considering here, and I mean, you may have a difference of opinion. I don't think I'm paying for Embiid. Uh, could he burn me? Absolutely. He's a monster. Wouldn't blame anyone. But there's someone else I really like, similarly priced. Uh, Saric. I don't like playing him. I really don't. He's having a terrible season. But the absence of Mike Muscala, I think, has more of an impact than people are willing to admit, or at least or more than they acknowledge. Muscala's minutes over the last 3 games before he got his face caved in practice were 24, 26, and 28, Adam. That's a lot of minutes to be soaking up, predominantly at the 4, because you have Amir Johnson, who is playing most of the minutes, or at least was playing most of the minutes, backing up Embiid, and then Muscala would play like 5 or so minutes at the 5. With Muscala not in the lineup and Wilson Chandler still limited to around like 15, 17 minutes, that means that Saric is going to have to play another 35 minutes tonight unless they get real funky with the rotation, and I don't think Brett Brown does that.
Yeah, I mean, I have Saric projected for like 30 or 32 minutes, but still makes him a perfectly reasonable play. I'm getting more of JJ Redick and Robert Covington on DraftKings, where they're all similarly priced. I'm getting more of them than Saric, but I think as anyone who watches the show knows, I've been high on Saric in terms of him being underpriced, just because we should expect him to start shooting better than he has been for most of the season.
Right. I don't like playing Covington. Anyone that's known me for long enough, especially you, and listeners that followed us over from FanVice or viewers, they know that Roko's not exactly my dude. Like Covington and I go back, not personally, but in my mind we do. And dude, he's done so many people dirty, and he's done the Sixers dirty, and he just has so many bad games. I don't like playing Sarge, but I do think he's cheap enough here where you said 30, 32. I'm projecting him for more than that. I'm giving him around 34, 35. I think the absence of Muscala makes a big difference. Now, if Chandler plays 20 instead of 15, that gets cut into from Dario. So
Right.
I think that also makes a difference. But if Chandler only plays 15 again, then I think Sarge goes ahead and sees around 35 minutes.
Yeah, I
But
had Chandler at 18 and him and Saric splitting the power forward minutes.
have we seen anything on his minutes though? Because last game they explicitly said that he was limited to 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Um,
I haven't seen anything. I was just kind of giving him a natural like 3 minute boost.
right, and that's what I'm saying. 15, 20. I really don't know. But so basically, Saric will put around 31 to possibly 35 based on Wilson
Right.
Chandler.
I'm expecting Saric to play whatever minutes Chandler does not play at the 4.
Are you looking at? So am I. Are you looking at the Charlotte side?
Not really. I mean,
Oh
I
wait,
think
Ray just sorry. Ray just hit us up in Slack. I like Ray and I trust him, so I am going to quote this. But you know what they say: trust but verify. That it just came out that Wilson Chandler is going to be limited to 50. Oh yeah, he's right. There it is. Wilson Chandler will still be limited to around 15 minutes today. So
okay, a couple
there you
more.
go. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Uh, yeah. So I think Kemba is like 84, 600 on FanDuel. Um, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, but
How
um,
expect he's 8,600.
yeah, 8,600. Okay. Yeah. So I like that price tag for him a lot. 9,400 on DraftKings. It's not that I dislike the price. It's just that I'm not getting much of him because of, all the other spots you can go to. But I mean, it's the same analysis as it has been all season. He has a 30% usage rate. He has over a 30% expected assist percentage. He's going to play around 36 minutes. So that's really appealing. But beyond him, there's nothing that I'm really interested in. I think what you had mentioned about the 3 center rotation is important when we talk about Charlotte, because Marvin Williams is coming off of a really good game, but he's been playing 4 to 5 minutes at center most games this season. He played a little shy of 5 minutes in that last game. If they're going to run a center rotation that includes Biyombo along with Zeller and Hernan Gomez, it's hard to imagine Williams also gets those minutes. So I'm taking a few minutes off of where I normally project Marvin Williams, and then the rest of that Charlotte rotation is just such a mess in terms of being able to predict who gets the minutes. That Kemba's really the only guy I trust here.
Yeah, pretty much. And I still, you mentioned the FanDuel pricing definitely makes a difference. I like him more on FanDuel than DraftKings. On DraftKings, I just keep finding myself elsewhere. Right now, I don't even know if I have any Kemba. That could be sketchy. That could be
I
something
didn't
I
have any
regret.
hoping I get some more.
Yeah, I might do a little something to try and force him in a little bit. Not to a lot, but maybe even like 5-10%. You have to think though, Kemba's going to be really low owned on DraftKings today.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, this was, by the way, the Philly team that earlier this season he jacked up. I think it was 31 shots, 60 fantasy points. I mean, I'm definitely not someone that looks at one game against the team and draws conclusions from that. But the Sixers defense, they at times they look very good, and at other times they just look completely lost on switches and struggling to defend the perimeter. And other times they're fine, but they turn the ball over a lot. And Kemba should be able to benefit from some fast break points off turnovers. So I'm going to try and get a little bit of him in there. Aside from that, it's just not a team that I find myself gravitating towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same spot.
All right. Hey, by the way, it's 5:23. We still got some time to go here before we get to the next game. If you look in the bottom right corner of the screen, right below Adam's purty new haircutted face. Well, not his face, his haircutted head, where his face is under. The promo code Deeper Dive. If you go to awesomeo.com and you look on the right to the Join Now button, you click Join Now and put in Deeper Dive as your promo code, one word, you get a free week of awesomeo.com content, all of the premium stuff, everything, even access to the Slack chat that we talk about so often. So you really have nothing to lose. It's a win-win situation. And be sure to hit the thumbs up button for us. It does us more favors, and it helps us more than you could imagine. All right, let's keep it going here, Adam. Detroit, Atlanta. I really like this game. I know that Blake is expensive, and I know he disappointed last time out, but I'm a numbers guy, and I keep coming back to the numbers on him. And the numbers on Blake Griffin just scream that he should have a great game here. The Pistons are 5-point favorites against a bad Atlanta squad, but it's a 226 total. It's a pace-up game. Atlanta leads the entire league in pace. And, I'll repeat what I said. Blake Griffin leads the entire league in touches. Guy's playing 37 minutes per game in close games. He's top 5 in scoring, top 10 in assists, leads the team in potential assists. And he has the 11th most rebounds in the league. He's doing everything. So I know he's expensive, Adam, more so on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, his ownership will be significantly higher. But it's just a great game against an Atlanta team that, on top of all that, Atlanta against power forwards this year, and I think it's viable because they don't really have anyone that can guard him. They're allowing the most points, 4th most rebounds, 3rd most assists, and the most steals. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they lead the league in pace. They play bad defense, and they have the worst turnover rate in the league. So, yes, as you can see, I like Blake Griffin. If he burns me again, he burns me again, but I'm going back to the well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Normally, I don't really end up getting that much Blake, even though I like him a lot. But on my initial crunch, I still got 20% at 10K on DraftKings because there's just not that many spots to pay up for on this slate. And for all the reasons that you said, Atlanta plays really fast. They don't play good defense. And Griffin, is just doing everything for this team, leading in expected assist percentage, leading in usage, one of the best rebounders in the league as well. So, yeah, I think it's a really good spot for Blake. The only thing that kind of caps my exposure to him and keeps me from having a ton is that I also love Andre Drummond here, and I don't particularly want to play them together outside of game stacks.
I don't mind playing them together. Now, this isn't to say that I'm looking to play them together. And Eric Johnson asked in chat, "Can you play them together?" Am I trying to get them in the lineups together? No. But if I make a good lineup that has Blake and Drummond in it, I'm not going to move off of it just because of that. I mean, both of these guys, again, Griffin is still rebounding really well. with Drummond next to him. And I think a big factor here, Adam, is look at the rest of this team. Look at the rest of this Detroit team. They don't have any good rebounders, right? They don't have anyone like Stanley Johnson, Glenn Robinson, Reggie Bullock, Reggie Jackson, Langston Galloway, Ish Smith. None of these guys for their position are quality rebounders. So Blake basically gets all of Drummond's scraps, and that's why he's gone out there this season and is averaging almost 11 rebounds per game. I think both of them have skill sets that don't necessarily take away from each other, and both of them have usage rates that are super high. So I'm not as opposed to playing them together as it seems you are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you that they don't really eat into each other. The issue that I have is if you play them both, like if you get 60 fantasy points from Blake and 60 fantasy points from Drummond, Atlanta's either not staying in the game or someone from the Taurean Prince, Bazemore, Trae Young group is having a monster game. So I'm just making it so I'm not making it so that I don't have them together. I'm just making it so that where I do have them together, I also have Atlanta.
All right, sounds good. I think this front court is easily one of my favorites on the night. I mean, it's just I don't know how I can get away from it. At least one of these guys. I'll have a bunch of both. Drummond has 4 20-20 games on the year. He came 1 rebound shy last time. He's average. Do you know Drummond has the third most points, averages the third most points in the league among centers?
Like actual points?
Actual points.
That's weird. He's come so far in a couple of years.
It's crazy, isn't it? You know what his usage rate is? Drummond.
Like 24%, 25%?
27. 26.2. Sorry, 26.2. And he has a 26.7 total rebounding rate, which is just ridiculous. So, yeah, we've spoken enough about them. You know how we feel. And that's not even including the fact that Atlanta's front court defense is not good. Talk to me about Reggie Jackson at a price point that I'm sure most people are salivating over, even though he's Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine spot for him. It's, a really good matchup and everything. That being said, I didn't get any on my initial crunch. I haven't projected for 30 minutes. I haven't projected for, close to, I guess, like 28 DraftKings points. But, yeah, I think he's fine, but I'm not going to have anywhere near as much Reggie Jackson as I am Blake or Drummond.
Yeah, me neither. I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that there are some other point guards that I think are also too cheap.
Yeah, agreed.
What else in this game? We've talked Detroit. If there's anything else, feel free. Otherwise, let's flip over to the Atlanta side.
Yeah, I mean, nothing other than secondary guys from Detroit for me, beyond what we've already talked about. Glenn Robinson should probably play like 28 minutes at a cheap price tag in a good spot, but nothing I'm prioritizing. On the other side, though, I haven't seen an Atlanta starting lineup yet. Have you?
No, sir.
I'm assuming that we get Prince back, but at 5,600 on DraftKings, I do think Taurean Prince is a really good play, especially if you are playing a lot of Drummond and Griffin, because one of the likely candidates to keep Atlanta in this game, which you would like if you're paying 10K for someone on Detroit. So I like Prince quite a bit. Trae Young, it's harder to prioritize. I don't think he's a bad play at all. I like the matchup. It's just, again, that there's a lot of point guard options that I think are really good. So that, kind of limits my Trae Young. And then beyond that, it's really tough to trust anyone on this Atlanta team. You have Kevin Huerter back, which is injecting another, around 16 minutes into this rotation that already has been running really, really deep now that everyone's healthy. So beyond, the high usage guys in Prince and Young, it's tough for me to really get to anyone. And, even Young, you can only really project him for like 32 or 33 minutes, whereas you have other guards on this slate that you can project for upwards of 36.
All right. By the way, Brent Hayden says it was released hours. Yeah, everyone's saying it was released hours ago. I must have missed it. I guess you did too.
Yeah.
So I guess it was released. Must have been like legitimately hours ago. Let's see if I can find it here. God, it must have really been hours ago because I don't see it. I mean, oh, here we go. Yep. All right. So nice call, fellas. We got some astute viewers here. Hawks will start Young, Bazemore, Prince, Spellman, and Len. That is good. Now, Prince off the bench wouldn't have bothered me if Kevin Huerter was still out, because Prince closed the entire game out, played all of the fourth quarter alongside Bembry. Bembry also played the full fourth quarter, Adam, which probably meant that Prince was playing at the 4, and I just like that even more. But at 5,600, if this game stays close and he doesn't get in foul trouble, you're getting big minutes from Prince. It's really hard for me, even though, look, the guy can have some rough outings. It's hard for me not to have a lot of interest in Prince now that his price is easily the cheapest it's been all season long. This is the first time, other than last game, that he's been below 6K, and he's at 5,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's priced to his floor. Absolutely. He's got the second highest usage rate on the team at 26.3%.
Yeah.
He's got a 15.5% expected assist percentage. Yeah, I mean, even if you account for how deep their rotation's gotten and you give him, 32 minutes instead of 36, he still comes out as a really good play at 5,600.
Yeah, 100%. Let's keep it going. Outside of him, I'm not really on. I'm not on Trae Young. I think Bazemore's okay. I don't have much interest in Bembry with Herter back. It's pretty much Prince for me.
Yeah, that's the only one I'm prioritizing from Atlanta as well.
All right, let's move to Miami, Indiana, and as we do on the deeper dive, let's break down some rotations here, man. This is kind of fun. I'll let you kick it off, and then I'll chip in as well. We have the Pacers favored by 1.5 points, 207.5 total. Both teams playing slow this year. Not a surprise for Miami. Slightly surprising for Indiana. But the one thing I'll point out before we get going here, Adam, is that last game when Dragic and Wade were out, they are both out today as well. Last game against San Antonio, where Drummond almost triple-doubled in the first half, Spoelstra only played 4 players off the bench. And of Tyler Johnson, Derek Jones, Kelly Olynyk, and Bam Adebayo, only one of them was a guard. So Wayne Ellington played 37 minutes, and Tyler Johnson was the only guard to actually come off the bench.
Yeah, the really tight rotation was nice to see, and it obviously makes this one of the most appealing spots to go to again today, assuming we see the same thing. Derek Jones Jr. is also out. So, maybe you see like Duncan Robinson pick up a few minutes in his place, but I expect most of that to just go to Kelly Olynyk like it did in the second half of the game against San Antonio. But, yeah, really, really tight rotation. You can expect another around 38 minutes from Josh Richardson. I think you can expect around 36 minutes apiece from Wayne Ellington and Rodney McGruder. Ellington, of course, being the one at the really, really cheap price tag still. And since the start of last season, without Wade or Dragic or James Johnson or Dion Waiters on the floor, you have almost a 20% usage rate from Ellington. So he should be out there, chucking up threes like he always does. You probably get 30, 32 minutes out of Hassan Whiteside, and you probably get around 32 bench minutes from Tyler Johnson to go along with, like 34 Justice Winslow minutes. So I think that it's just a very concentrated group of players here. And they obviously, you want to target the ones that will handle the ball and that see an increase in assist percentage without Goran Dragic out there. So that would be Josh Richardson. You would really like Justice Winslow. You really like Ellington. Obviously is cheap. Johnson's cheap. And then Whiteside has a 24.5% usage rate in about 120 minutes since the start of last season without these guys on the floor. So there's really to like everyone with the exception of Rodney McGruder, I think.
Yeah,
at least
yes.
McGruder's expensive.
6K McGruder gets tough. The thing about Ellington is Ellington, okay, if you've been playing daily fantasy basketball long enough, hell, if you've been playing since the start of last year, you should know that Ellington can just ruin your day. But Ellington's also dirt cheap. And Spoelstra's rotation was so tight that I don't see why Ellington wouldn't get similar playing time again. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to play 37 at him, but I think Tyler Johnson probably comes in around 30, 32. You can't really give Richardson a whole lot more than 38, maybe 40. So naturally, a lot of those minutes are going to be pushed Ellington's way, and we saw that. We saw that the other day. Now, he paid off for us big time, no doubt about it. And I'm going to have plenty of Wayne Ellington today, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for like 15 fantasy points. I think it's just one of these spots where you kind of have to bite the bullet because he's so damn cheap. And a guy at this price tag that we're pretty much locking into 30 plus minutes is very, very difficult to avoid, no matter how bad of a gut feeling I may have about it or not.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when you talk DraftKings, he's guard and forward eligible. FanDuel, obviously, you run less risk because you can just drop him. But yeah, he is scoring dependent. You know, in his time without all of these guys on the floor since last season, the 19.9% usage rate is nice for a guy of his price tag, but only a 6% rebounding rate, less than a 4% assist percentage. So both of those, it just, points to how scoring dependent he is, and the fact that if the ball's not going in, he's going to have a bad game.
Exactly. And what did he shoot? Like 6 for 10 from 3 last game. You're going to need some big numbers like that. But look, hopefully Ellington's out there long enough where he gives you a few rebounds and a couple steals, and then if he only finishes with 10 points, it doesn't kill you either. But it's a risk. It's one you probably have to take. I feel the same about Tyler Johnson. I know you spoke to Johnson and said pretty much everyone here is in play. I totally agree. Let me ask you this though. I know where I stand on this, but I want your answer first. Tyler Johnson or Terry Rozier on DraftKings?
It's really close, but I have Rozier a little bit ahead of Johnson.
Okay. I have Johnson a little bit ahead of Rozier. My first crunch, I have 2% more Johnson than Rozier. And that's really just because of the price. I'm not even concerned as much about the matchup with Utah for Rozier as much as just the Tyler Johnson coming in at a cheaper price. Now on FanDuel, Tyler Johnson's 4,700 and Rozier is 6,200. Adam, both of them at point guard. That's a pretty big disparity.
Yeah, I would take the savings on Tyler Johnson there. I'm trying to look to see where they actually came in like an initial crunch. I know I had Terry Rozier hit my 60% cap on DraftKings. Tyler Johnson came in at 40%.
Juan Quintero says it's going to be a good night. I feel it. Me too, man. I feel it too. DJ Swab, Rozier's about to ruin a lot of lineups tonight. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it, but I'm still going to have some.
I plan on probably trying to match the field on Terry Rozier on DraftKings.
That's what I'm exactly. I don't like him enough to try and get overweight on him, but I don't hate him enough to be like, okay, I'm full fading him in 150. That seems a little bit reckless as well.
I think I've already found my spot where I'm taking a really big stand. Probably we'll talk about it when we get there. But I don't feel the need. It makes me not feel the need to take one on Terry Rozier as well.
I know who it is.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do. It's Alan Crabb.
All in on Alan Crabb.
What about the Pacers on the road here? Like I said, slight 1.5 point favorite. This game should be close. I like that. So kind of mitigating the slow pace. Pace matters in some spots, but it matters less when Spoelstra's running like a 4-guard or 3-guard rotation and a 4-man bench. So on the other side, there are definitely more guys to be used here, and I'm not nearly as interested in the Pacers as a team.
Yeah, I mean, on my first crunch for DraftKings, I got 8% Victor Oladipo and 0 of anyone else. That's not to say that I'm not playing any of these guys, but it just goes to show that I'm not prioritizing any of them. Oladipo obviously has a monster ceiling, but he's also relatively expensive. And then everyone else is just kind of mediocre.
All right. I don't even know if I have anything to add here other than, Oladipo is probably going to shoot a lot.
Yeah. Miles Turner is super cheap, but there's also a ton of opportunity cost at center today.
Yeah. It's funny. Every time Oladipo takes like a ton of shots, the Pacers lose. So, so if you're playing Oladipo, hope that they're playing from behind and lose because he's probably going to have a really good game. All right. You want to move on?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Brooklyn, Denver. In Denver at what I believe is still named the Pepsi Center. Nuggets, 9.5 point favorites here. 214 total. And you want to talk about some changes in pace. I'll tell you something interesting too, Adam. Not that you care, but guess what? I run this shit. I'm telling you anyway. The Brooklyn Nets play at a 98.84 pace this year, right? 27th in the league. So what? 4th slowest? 98.84. Last year, they were at 99.74, so not a big difference. And that was the 6th fastest pace in the league.
Wow.
Crazy, right? Pelicans finished the season playing at a 101.6 pace. That was the fastest pace. This year, that would rank 16th. Now, we know that pace will come down. Like it'll balance out. We saw it last season. It's at the end of the year, the Hawks aren't going to be playing one at 108. But at the same time, we're seeing some differences. Brooklyn and Denver are both 27th and 28th, respectively, in pace this year, and the Nuggets are favored pretty heavily at home. Start with Denver. Give me your thoughts on Jamal Murray.
I have some interest in Murray here because he's just playing so many minutes with the rotation that Mike Malone's been running lately, playing 36 to 38 minutes a night, and we're seeing him shoot a little bit more as well. It's not a spot that I'm prioritizing.
I think we have to back up. I think we got to back up. I got to cut you off here for just a second. Victor Oladipo is questionable to play, Adam, and I forgot to mention Tyreke Evans when we were talking about Indiana. I actually wrote him up in today's deep dive, which again, use deeper dive, one word, in the join now page on awesomemode.com. Get a week free of all of this stuff if you want to check it out. Use the promo code deeper dive. I wrote him up today, not knowing about Oladipo, just because he has a 28% usage rate. He's still producing above 1 fantasy point per minute and still has we know Evans can get hot and go drain a bunch of baskets from 2 feet out from the rim and give you 35 fantasy points in 23 minutes. I forgot to mention him. Even if Oladipo is playing, I was going to have, like 10% Evans. But what are you doing here if Oladipo doesn't play? Because that is a huge, huge piece if he doesn't.
Yeah, if Oladipo doesn't play, I think that Tyreke Evans obviously becomes a very good play. Darren Collison at 4,200 should see more usage as well. I'm trying to pull up the rest of the numbers now for Oladipo off the court. Guessing that
make sure to if you're doing so, I can talk while you look it up. Make sure to pull Lance Stevenson off the court as well, because he was the biggest beneficiary of no Oladipo last year. So no Lance Stevenson makes a damn big difference, right?
Yeah. I mean, my assumption is that you're going to get more Darren Collison, obviously more Tyreke Evans. But yeah, I'm pulling it up now from the start of last season.
I'll give you just my quick take on this. If Oladipo is out, and this is not hyperbole, I will have probably 80% Oladipo. Or that'll be a winning recipe. I will probably have like 80+% Tyreke Evans at that price.
Yeah, that seems good.
I wouldn't really care too much if he's chalk. 30 minutes of Tyreke Evans, Adam, at 4,100 on DraftKings and 4,400 on FanDuel. It's really, really hard for him not to give you what you need at that price. Really hard.
Yeah. 143 minutes since the start of last season for Tyreke Evans without either of Oladipo or Stevenson on the floor. 30.3% usage, 24.2% assist percentage, 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. And then if you look at Darren Collison, this is only in 73 minutes, so you probably see it come down a little bit, but 28.5% usage, 27.9% assist percentage, 0.99 DraftKings points per minute. I think that Collison and Evans would be the two that really, really jump out for me.
Yeah, me too. By the way, I'm an idiot for even mentioning that Stevenson out because Evans wasn't on the team last year, so I don't even know what I was talking about, man.
Right, yeah, it seemed weird when you said it, but I did it anyway.
But you said good point, so I didn't even think to process it. I was thinking about last year, but either way, the fact
that traded like midseason or something, I totally forgot. But
no, I'm just stupid sometimes. But now that we've worked through that, let's keep it going. I don't know. I don't remember where you left off, but we were talking Brooklyn, Denver.
Yeah, so I was saying that I have some interest in Jamal Murray just because of the minutes that he's playing. It's not a spot that I'm, really heavily prioritizing, but I do love Nikola Jokic here in a really good bounce back spot after just an awful game against Memphis where he only played 25 minutes because of foul trouble. He took one shot. It was just, an overall terrible game for Jokic.
Yo, that's crazy, man. He took one shot.
Yeah,
but the game before.
Yeah, he hadn't been shooting a lot in general, but you don't expect that to continue long term. And if looking at game logs is going to drive down his ownership a little bit, then I'll gladly be overweight on him in the spot against Brooklyn. Also, if you want to, kind of read into things a little bit, he was interviewed after the Memphis game, and in the interview, he didn't really say a whole lot after getting fined for his no homo comment. He didn't have a lot to say, but
Yeah.
they did ask him about what he needed to do to improve the offense, and he said shoot more. And then they asked if the coach or anyone on the team had talked to him about like what to do differently, and he said Gary Harris had talked to him a bit. So I'm thinking that Gary Harris might have told him to be a little bit more aggressive offensively, in which case that would be great. But yeah, I mean, I'm still projecting Jokic for 33, 34 minutes in a really good spot. I'll gladly be overweight on Nikola Jokic here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Right now I have 31% Jokic.
My
And
initial got 60.
60. Yeah, I don't think I'll be there just because there are a lot of centers I like, and he's one of them. Uh, the funny thing is, I could see this being a spot where like Jokic comes out and takes a ton of shots, and then kind of reverts back to taking like 9, 10 shots a game after this. But this is the
Right.
one game where he comes out and just lights it up. And it's not like the guy can't score when he's shooting, right? It's not like, yeah, he's shooting 52%. He's got a little bit of range. He's attempted 33 pointers this year. Yeah, get it going, baby. This I think is a great call by you. People are backing off of him for sure, and this is where you target that. Um, I think Jamal Murray's fine, but he's also one of those guys that can give you a really low floor game. I don't think it's a bad spot for him, but I'll probably be going to Jokic here over Murray on the same team. Not to say that you can't play both. I think Gary Harris is a little bit too cheap, but Jokic is really my preferred play from this game, and it sounds like you as well.
Yep, absolutely.
What about Brooklyn?
I have nothing. I just can't go to Brooklyn on this slate. One, they're facing obviously a good Denver defense, but more than that, the rotation for Brooklyn's just been so deep all season, and now you're adding DeMarre Carroll back into it as well. You have teams on the slate that are playing guys, consistently 36 to 40 minutes a night. I just can't bring myself to go to a Brooklyn team in a tough spot where everyone, with the exception of Karis LeVert, I have projected to play less than 30 minutes, and even LeVert I have at 32. So, you know, will someone from this team have a good game? Maybe, but it's just way too likely for it to be spread around for me to want to go here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jonathan Conahan said, "Last 3 centers I played versus Brooklyn, disappointed for what it's worth." Um, Again, I've said it a lot. I think Jared Allen's defense has actually been pretty impressive, but Jokic is kind of a different breed here. You just get so much from him that I don't think this is one of those spots where you worry too much about that. I'd be worried if he was just someone that could only score around the basket at him, because Allen's rim protection has been pretty solid. But Jokic is definitely versatile enough to give you everything else elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he just does everything on the floor. It doesn't. The reason I like him doesn't even have that much to do with the matchup. It's not one that I'm scared of. But even if I
Right.
don't count it as being amazing, I just think that 9,200 for Jokic and everything that he does is too cheap.
Agreed. Boston, Utah. We've got some interesting developments that happened earlier in the day, fortunately. 206 total in this game, Utah by 5.5 points, and that is because Kyrie Irving is out for personal reasons. Now, Boston came back. They never should have won that game, but Phoenix is just so bad that they allowed them to tie it up. They were down. Phoenix was up by 3 with 7 seconds to go, tie it up. 100, go to overtime, and of course, Phoenix loses. When it went to overtime, you knew for a fact Phoenix had no chance. But you know what's interesting? This has actually been a Boston team that's been carved up by shoot first, leading the team in usage players at the shooting guard or point guard position recently, like Jamal Murray put up 48, and then Devin Booker goes off for 38. Both of them attempted 30 shots. Uh, I am going to have Donovan Mitchell. I know most people, I won't say most people, but I know that nobody likes playing him against teams like Boston. I assume that he'll still have ownership though because of his price, and it's 7,100, which is the cheapest Donovan Mitchell's been all season on DraftKings. I'm speaking specifically on DraftKings. I am going to have some Donovan Mitchell, Adam, because I could see this being a game where he jacks up 25 plus shots, and I don't think 7,100 is enough. What are you doing with this Boston Utah game, starting with Utah?
Yeah, so I think I'm lower on Mitchell than you, and I don't. It's not even that I want to be. It's just that I'm projecting him really low, and I don't feel great about it. I'm gonna make sure that I have some, but I think I'll end up being underweight on Mitchell, who I do expect to be really popular on DraftKings. Still just, a really scoring dependent player, and he's just not popping out for me on this slate. Even I haven't projected for around the fantasy point per minute in this spot, and I'm just still not getting him in lineup. So it's not a spot that I feel super comfortable about being underweight or fading, but I just am not really getting there right now.
Do you have any Joe Ingles?
Yeah, I have some Ingles. He's actually popping for me more than Mitchell is. He's someone that I'm not going to go crazy on either, just because I don't love rostering him. But he's the guy from Utah that I'm actually getting the most of right now.
Anyone else from Utah?
Nah.
Yeah, me neither. On the Boston side, Irving out. You have Terry Rozier, who in Irving's place had great second half of the season, great playoffs last year. This season, it's hard to say what we're getting from Rozier because they got plenty of bodies that they can rotate in and out of that backcourt, including Marcus Smart. But with Irving out, how are you breaking this down? And as I mentioned earlier, Rozier's 4,900 on DraftKings, but over on FanDuel, he's 6,200. Rozier is more expensive than Derrick Rose on FanDuel, which is insane.
Yeah, I think obviously it makes a huge difference what site you're playing on. At sub 5K on DraftKings, this morning I was talking about wanting to be underweight or to differentiate. If Oladipo is out and I end up boosting Darren Collison, I think that it'll lower my Rozier. But if we assume Oladipo's in, I've come around on Rozier just looking more at his rates last year when you took Kyrie off, but even when you played him alongside like Jason Tatum and Al Horford, still like a 21.5% usage rate, a 23%, or sorry, an 18% assist percentage, almost a 12% rebound percentage. And so I still haven't projected for like 32 DraftKings points, which obviously is nice at 4,900. On FanDuel, it's totally different, and I'd rather save money and go to some other guys.
Anyone else here?
I have a lot of Marcus Smart on DraftKings at 4,100. I have him projected for about 32 minutes, and I hate rostering the guy, but I just think that he should have some ball handling responsibility here as well, and that he's just too cheap for the minutes that he's going to play.
Yeah, I have some Marcus Smart as well. I can tell you this much. I can tell you this much confidently, that I will have a lot less Marcus Smart and probably none if Oladipo ends up being out. All of those shares of Marcus Smart at 4,100 at shooting guard or at the guard spot will immediately turn into a $4,100 Tyreek Evans.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I hope not. Minnesota, Sacramento, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about in the front court for that Boston team.
No, I'm good to move on to Minnesota.
My projections really liked Al Horford, and I just couldn't do it. Like I'll take the L if he ends up having a big game here, but it's just I just can't. Let's get to the last one, a fun one, really, 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 really exciting game for fantasy purposes between the most dysfunctional turmoil. There's so much turmoil for this Minnesota team. They all hate each other. Well, they all hate Jimmy Butler right now, and it's just been a mess. They can't win. They can't even keep some games competitive, but somehow they're favored on the road against the Sacramento team that was widely known for years, Adam, as having the most dysfunctional front office and locker room. And you know what? They're overachieving right now. And guys like De'Aaron Fox, I really, really like tonight at 6,900 on DraftKings. FanDuel too. Buddy Hield. Give me some Willie Cauley-Stein. Give me some MB3. I don't care. I like this Kings team. It might be the death of me, but I'm going. And it's not like I'm telling people anything they don't know. But I really think this is a good spot, and they're still too cheap given their production.
Yeah, I'm getting a ton of stuff from the Kings as well. It's a spot that I like against Minnesota, obviously, and I really like the price tags. De'Aaron Fox is going to play around 36 minutes a night, a ton of usage, a ton of assist opportunities. So I'm getting a lot of him. Buddy Hield, I like the matchup perfectly fine for him. I expect him to regress shooting as we go forward, which I've talked about, but that's not going to stop me from playing him in good matchups like this one when I'm still projecting him to play 35, 36 minutes. I think that Bogdanovich being out, it doesn't affect Hield's median projection, but it does raise his floor a little bit just because it's one less competent basketball player behind him. So that makes me like him a little bit more. Cauley-Stein, obviously a really deep center position keeps my exposure at him down a little bit, but 34 minutes of him in this spot at 6,600 on DraftKings is really appealing. Bielitsa, I have less of, but I think that it's a fine spot for him as well. I'm really getting to a lot of the Kings here.
Yeah, me too. I mean, look, We're not gonna lie and say, they're gonna go out there and smash because it's the Kings and anything. When you're dealing with Buddy Hield, things can go wrong in a jiffy. But these guys just all profile is just really, really good plays here. And I'm going to do what I can to get as many of them in. Actually, I don't even have to do anything. I just have to hit calculate or crunch, and they're going to pop up. So I have no problem here. Actually, I love them. De'Aaron Fox at 6,900 is on DraftKings, though, specifically is just a really, really solid option and one that you should have quite a bit of. On the other side, Jimmy Butler is expected to play. Derrick Rose is $6,000 on FanDuel, Adam. That's just egregious. And then Karl Anthony Towns, who I want you to start with here, because you had mentioned him earlier. He's been disappearing in the second half, but it's still a spot where, what are your thoughts on Towns here?
So I like the spot for Towns, but I do think I'm going to end up with barely any of him, and that's a spot where I expect to be, really contrarian tonight in tournaments because the center position is just so deep that there are a lot of other guys I can go to with really high ceilings. And if you look at Towns' numbers since the start of last season, alongside Jimmy Butler, a 21.3% usage rate, but if you look at him alongside Jimmy Butler without Jeff Teague, you see the usage rate drop to 17.6%. If you add Derrick Rose to the floor as well, you're at 18.5%. And it makes sense because if you do that, you're talking about guys handling the ball more in Butler and Rose that are high usage guys, not necessarily facilitators like a Tyus Jones or a Teague. So I think that it makes sense for Towns, to see his usage decrease. And on this slate, it's just tough for me to prioritize a guy like Towns that I expect to see a lot lower usage than than the guys that are priced around him at the position like Jokic or Drummond or whoever. So it's not that I dislike the spot for Towns, but I just don't really see me getting to a lot of him with the way this slate's broken down for me.
I'm with you. Thoughts? We don't have much time, so thoughts on the rest of this game for Minnesota?
Love Derrick Rose on FanDuel, not ending up with much of him on DraftKings. I have him projected for 36 minutes with a 24% usage rate and 20% assist percentage, and it's just still not getting him into my lineup. So, again, it's a really good spot, but I'm just not really ending up with him. Jimmy Butler, really the same can be said for me for Butler and for Wiggins. I like the spot. They're just not priorities for me.
That's where I am. I'm coming up with more Towns than you are. I think the same way you feel about Jokic, I feel about Towns. Like he has that upside to put up a monster game.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I will have some of him for sure.
Are you getting a lot of Taj Gibson?
No, you are, huh?
Taj Gibson, yeah.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
No, not much.
I also projected him for 36 minutes.
Okay, well, that would make sense. There you go. Adam likes Taj Gibson. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. Stick around. Chris and Eddie coming up next, live before lock, taking you up till 7 o'clock Eastern time. Hit that like button. Please, man, we got 929 watching. Let's get that ratio up a little bit. We appreciate you, fellas. And, of course, Deeper Dive promo code over at awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com. Hit the join now. Use the code Deeper Dive. Get a free week behind the paywall. All of our premium content free for a week. Have a great weekend. Have a great night. Good luck. We'll catch you back here Monday on the Deeper Dive.